A new Star Wars canon book just did the surprising and not only nailed existing pre-Phantom Menace lore, but actually expanded upon it in a really interesting way. I'll talk all that and more on today's Star Wars video. Hey guys, this is Justin, hello, and welcome to another video. So, a couple of days ago, I finished the novel The Living Force by John Jackson Miller. It's a recently released new canon novel. I thought it was okay. I'll talk about it a bit at the end for those who are interested, but I also covered it on my podcast, Tapcaf Transmissions. What I found most interesting about The Living Force, however, was its portrayal of a pre-Episode 1 Galactic Republic. If you think about it, this is a time period we don't see covered very much in Star Wars canon or Legends. Yes, there were some novels, usually about Jedi, set in that time period, but really, if you think about it, the amount of coverage of that era jumps by several orders of magnitude, it feels like, by the time you hit the Clone Wars. So there's a lot less about the world building, the state of the Republic in that era, so that's what I want to talk about in today's video. Unsurprisingly, given that the title is The Living Force, the book is about the Jedi turning away temporarily from big galactic politics to look at how their presence, or lack thereof often, is affecting the galaxy as a whole. One of the big threads throughout the novel is the fact that Jedi outposts are being closed, especially in the Outer Rim, as the Jedi themselves retreat towards the center of the galaxy. Let me just read a paragraph from the publisher's summary. The Jedi have always traveled the stars defending peace and justice, but the galaxy is changing, and along with it, the Jedi Order. More and more, the Order finds itself focused on the future of the Republic, secluded on Coruscant, where the 12 members of the Jedi Council weigh crises on a galactic scale, as yet another Jedi outpost left over from the Republic's Golden Age is set to be decommissioned on the planet Quen. Qui-Gon Jinn challenges the Council about the increasing isolation of the Order. Now, this might surprise some of you, but it's true. Even before the Phantom Menace, the galaxy, or at least the Republic and the Jedi, were already beginning to fall into disorder. And although I was a bit iffy on the book as a whole, I thought it really nailed this element of world building. And this was definitely reiterated to me upon rewatching the Phantom Menace in theaters recently with my son. The Republic at this point is meant to be in disarray. The crawl itself starts with turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic, while the third paragraph describes the Republic's Congress as endlessly debating. The issues here are systemic as well. It's not just a bad chancellor, although Valorum certainly is a weak politician. From a Jedi perspective, they've clearly let themselves become too entwined with the Republic. And that's an ongoing theme throughout the book that the Jedi, surprise, surprise, never managed to actually figure out. They say they're an independent organization, but in reality, they mostly serve at the will of the Senate. The Jedi Council do accomplish the mission they set out to do in this novel, but it's a very small scale. It's about the living force and about individuals, which is good. However, while they do make these small changes on an individual level on this one occasion, they fail to actually extricate themselves from the Republic and go where the galaxy most needs them. The Jedi too closely see themselves as servants of the Republic itself, not democracy and freedom as an idea. Part of the problem is the Jedi shouldn't be on Coruscant. This was talked about, I believe, at the end of Fate of the Jedi. I could be mistaken, where Luke decides to move the Jedi Council off Coruscant because, again, he actually recognizes that the Jedi should work with the Republic, or in his case, the Galactic Alliance, but not be subservient to it. Then I think it's also in the Revenge of the Sith novel, maybe Plagueis, not great with my memory today. There's also the idea that the degeneracy and the corruption of the planet itself has actually seeped into the Jedi Order, which is an idea that I like. Obviously, Yoda, Mace Windu, the other Jedi Council members, they all have the best intention, but they are failing the galaxy. Even in Episode 1, there's a malaise over everything. The future is cloudy. I wonder whether if the Jedi had moved, for example, to the Outer Rim, they would have been able to see things a bit more clearly. Not only because they would more directly be serving the most forgotten people, like look at slavery on Tatooine, for example, but because they would have been away from the literal Darksider hiding in their midst. This book is obviously more Jedi focused, so we see less of how the Republic's leadership actually operates, but what we do see of Valorum again presents him as a weak chancellor. There's the idea that everything that happens is tied up in committees and meetings and endless bureaucracy. Some of the Jedi even get caught up into that, like Adi Gallia is described as basically a diplomat who's helping the Chancellor work on often very small issues like a planet's tourism industry, while the Outer Rim continues to fall to piracy and turmoil. We get a particular look at the Slice, which is actually not a small part of space. It's called the Slice because you can imagine the tip of it is at the center of the galaxy and it expands towards the Outer Rim like a triangle, with the borders being the Prelemian trade route and the Corellian run. So the Slice, due to the presence of two extremely important hyperlanes, is a very densely populated part of the galaxy, but because of its proximity to Hutt space, is, especially in the Outer Rim, susceptible to piracy, crime, etc. These have gotten so bad, however, that the crime waves are actually expanding beyond the Outer Rim into planets like Kelduin and the Mid-Rim territories. We see that the Utmian route, which is where we spend most of the time in this book, is being preyed on by 5 major pirate gangs, and the Republic has essentially no response. As the Jedi have been closing outposts and moving again back towards the inner core, it's fallen largely to individual planets and systems to police themselves, which is consistent with what we see of the post-Ruusan Republic in Star Wars Legends. After the Ruusan Reformations, the Republic really only managed a small peacekeeping force, and security of the galaxy was left to individual planets, systems, and sectors. The problem is, many of these planets within the Utmian route have no money to protect themselves or are directly under the influence of the Hutts. So, lots of smuggling, lots of crime, lots of piracy and raiding. And the book shows us that where the Republic retreats, often corporations are moving in to gain power. This, of course, is a major theme of the prequels, especially The Phantom Menace, and was a precipitating factor in the Clone Wars. Corporations are not only providing security, but on some planets like Quen, also responsible for providing basic services like education, which means that when profits dry up, these essential services just disappear or become significantly underfunded, leading to, well, very bad situations. Social black holes in the galaxy. One element I really liked in this book was the Assurance, which was a CR-56 Corvette serving as a part of the Republic's Judicial Force. The Judicial Force was the small police force the Republic did maintain, and we see the real sad state of it in this novel. The Judicial Force, for example, is not a proper military or police force. Rather, it's essentially hired ships who serve temporarily under the flag of the judicial forces. The Assurance, for example, also often served as an escort ship for private vessels. So the Republic is trying to spend their way into a bit more security, but they've got nowhere the money or at least political desire to do so. Even the Assurance itself is staffed largely by the children of wealthy families looking to essentially send their kids off to military camp for a couple of years to instill some discipline and whatever else. But that's really all I've got. I enjoyed this book overall. On Tapcaf, I gave it a C, which sounds bad, but a C really is average for our scale. It was an okay book. The audiobook was well done. It's quite long, one of my major issues. I described it as sort of like a beach episode for the Jedi. The entire council goes to this world Quen, and they each go off on their own little missions of various importance. Obviously, there is a bigger threat in the background, but it's pretty obvious that that's really not going anywhere, and that's always kind of the issue when making one of these books like a year before the film is set. The best part was definitely the portrayal of the individual Jedi, like how each master was handled. Thematically, I guess I had some issues with the Jedi and how they saw the galaxy. It was very naive, I suppose, and they came away with a win when I don't feel like one was earned, but maybe that's also the point. Anyway, let me know what you thought of the book. Let me know what you think of the lore I've discussed. All that and more, please, down below.